Ladies and gentlemen, hello again and welcome back to Don't Worry About the Government. Sticking doggedly to this once a month production schedule that I have currently found myself on. No, I mean, seriously, I've been exhausted. I went 15 days without a day off here. I managed to squeeze 2.5 in this last week. Brian Halverson, who is joining me on the program today. Hi, Brian. How are you?
Hello. I'm all right. I'm much better. I'm video worthy once again.
Yeah, no, there was
sounds very
definitely
vain.
there
That
were a
sounds
couple of
extremely
days. Oh well, yeah, last time you were infirmed and you
Oh
were no
yeah,
longer.
I got still some scars, but
It takes a long time for those to heal. Let me tell you, buddy. I have staph scars. They take a minute. They build character. The chicks dig them. They dig the scars. That's what they tell me. So, anyways, on today's show, we've got topics big and small. We're going to be going global, we're going to be going national, and then we are talking about, God knows, my favorite topic. Brian, a lot of people have always said, don't worry about the government's really a show about the celebs in disguise, a celebs show that masquerades as a politics show. So we got to do it. We got to talk about the celebs today.
well, speaking of that, I did have a very blue screen moment, maybe a couple weeks ago, when just flipping through the local HD channels, I saw a clip of TMZ for about 30 seconds, and they were interviewing some like former Ukrainian ambassador, or it was something Ukraine related. The folks at TMZ were bringing the Ukraine talk, and I didn't know how to process that. It just
we will talk about processing Ukraine a little bit more when we get into the Ukraine section. The other thing I always think about whenever I see TMZ is like, there's that guy that whoever the editor in chief of TMZ is, who's got to be 70 now, and he's been there and he's like on screen and hanging out with the celebs and acting young and stuff, and he's been doing this now for like 25 years. It's unnerving. I can't say I care for that fellow. I don't know his name though.
I don't care for him, but he wears a polo better than I do. I'll tell you that.
Well, yeah. I mean,
That's
we're
what
not,
he's got.
I never would have typified us as polo men though. You know
No,
what I mean?
no, but
yeah.
you know what? Next episode, a month from now,
Yeah. 6 weeks.
Let's wear some polos. Wear some polos.
Yeah, well, I'll acquire a polo to wear a polo. I don't think I own one. I don't think I have a single. I have whatever. I have one. I have exactly one of whatever the fuck you call these things. Yeah.
There are some people who can wear a polo into like a professional meeting and still look professional, and he does that, and neither of us do, apparently. Or
No.
at least I don't.
I don't have power meetings like that. I mean, that guy talks to celebs. Celebs don't talk to me. I'm not a celebs guy.
But some people, even if you're a celebs guy, I feel like some people have to put on a suit and tie in order.
Right. Okay. So like, it's clear neither one of us are celebs guys, but like, I would typify you as a bit of a wife guy, in the sense that like, you're a guy with a wife. You're a bit of a husband guy.
I'm kind of a backyard guy. Does that make me a wife guy? I don't know.
I mean,
you're not far off. You're not far off.
No. I mean, right. So like,
the heuristics. The
heuristics here. So that gets us into what occurred here at the Oscars.
That was good.
Yeah, you like that? You like that? Yeah. Unless you've been living under a rock, the Oscars occurred. I didn't watch any of it, but this moment that occurred, and then I guess some of the aftermath, but even then it could only keep my interest for so long. It just, once we got to the moment in question, I got what I needed out of the show, and really what I'll ever need out of an Oscars, and I moved on. So the moment in question here is Chris Rock is on stage, and there had been conflicting accounts, but now it has settled in on Chris Rock decided to go off script and make an impromptu joke about Will Smith's wife, who is not nominated or up for any Academy Award or anything, just like the wife of Will Smith, and made a joke saying basically that her look, which is a result of her having alopecia, it makes her look like she's going up for the remake of G.I. Jane, a movie starring Demi Moore made in the 1990s that caused a lot of controversy at the time because Demi Moore looked like a man.
Now,
And
yeah,
it was gender bending, as the term was at the time.
and the first the subject, I think everyone aside from us, of course, has ignored on this is how many millennials didn't get the reference.
I think that, it's interesting because the polling shows that millennials and younger tend to side more with Will Smith, which is very interesting because, to your point, Gen Xers and boomers, younger boomers, should actually understand and remember G.I. Jane and kind of remember the media moment. We were pretty
Yeah.
young, but even
So-
I kind of remember like everyone was talking about this movie as kind of being a bit of a big deal just because of Demi Moore doing this.
So imagine you're a millennial and you never got the reference, and you assume Chris Rock made a joke as well as generated a unique phrase riffing off of G.I. Joe in the way that the movie riffed off of G.I. Joe. Does that immediately offend you so much that you can't get over the fact that he actually didn't make this up but stole it? What I feel like there's some sort of disconnect that should be explored there.
Like, he definitely knew the movie. He was
No, he did.
Yeah,
Chris
yeah,
Rock
yeah,
did.
yeah,
I'm talking
right.
about the people like we're talking about who were actually so young.
But the younger set, I think, actually, I do understand the joke. Because, like, I mean, again, the polling seems to show here. I'm not going to bring up every single poll because, how accurate they're going to be. But it seems to be pretty evenly split, is sort of the takeaway. And, like, honestly, in the group chat, I was kind of hoping to get, like, someone on the other side of the aisle on the show here to discuss this as well.
I wanted to halfway confront you in the group chat, but I didn't. I should have just taken the lead. How bashful of me. But I think there's something as far as the polling, the real polling that I don't know took place is, when you heard Chris Rock say that, did you understand the reference?
Yeah, I did.
No, you did, but
Oh, yeah.
I think people younger than you and me, what's the point where someone probably did not understand it? What age?
I think they understood the joke even if they didn't understand the reference. The joke clearly was a comment about her hair.
So
like, and I think that that's where the younger set, I mean, if anything, like the hair stuff, maybe that was more salient than necessarily the movie reference. But, like, yeah, if you're like in your mid-30s or whatever, you're kind of like young enough to be kind of more down with like what the younger set says, but also old enough to understand that, like, I mean, I remember the comment about Demi Moore when she did the movie of, "Oh, she's still hot." And let's unpack that. Yeah, let's unpack that for a second. So the look in this movie makes you look like a dude. Wouldn't want to have sex with a woman who's looking like a dude. But Demi Moore's so hot that it doesn't matter that she's duding herself up, is basically the implication there. Like, I mean... At the core of Rock's joke, it was, "Hey, Will Smith, your wife looks like a dude now, like with this new haircut." So even if Rock didn't know about the alopecia, I think that's questionable. I think that's real. I think that's a very debatable point. Rock knows enough about. He's the director of the movie Good Hair. He knows enough about the good hair side of things and also like having a wife side of things that when you say to a woman in front of their husband, "Hey, you kind of look like a dude now," that is a transgressive line. Absolutely.
So, that is a point to be made, But on the flip side, if your take on this is predicated upon whether or not Chris Rock knew, your take is already misframed, because there's plenty of meat on the bone as far as the right way to frame this that should neutralize that in your conclusion on this, because I think there's too much there's too many takes that revolve around whether or not he knew, and I think that's the red herring here.
Yeah, I agree. I think whether or not he knew, he knows what G.I. Jane is sort of the more important part
Right,
here.
right.
It would be bad enough to say, hey, Will Smith at the Oscars and like Jada Pinkett Smith at the Oscars, hey Jada, your new haircut makes you look like a dude. That's pretty brutal.
Okay,
that's
so
bad.
That is pretty brutal. Now, I don't know how much weight I give this yet, but there is something to the where were you around whenever Seth MacFarlane was hosting, and where was this outrage in different ways postscript that everyone has all this outrage now. And so as far as the moment and what the parlance of the moment calls for, it is that role, as far as someone who is, not hosting the Oscars, but just it is almost, there is some sort of understanding that roasting is okay. And if it wasn't okay, I mean, Seth MacFarlane has crossed the line and not received the blowback he received as far as the PR. Now, he's received blowback as far as we don't want you to host again, but he hasn't really received like that. And I guess that's a different conversation on which one of those is actually
and like Ricky
more
Gervais,
valid.
same thing. But like, I also don't have all their jokes sort of at the ready to go through this. I mean,
sure.
I guess what I would say in the case of like Rock, like one, stick to the fucking script. You write a script. When you choose to drive off the road, if you hit like a pedestrian or a small animal or something like that, you chose to drive off the road.
So you're also someone who's sitting in the front row of the Oscars, who is apparently only ready to stay seated just so long as no one drives off the road. And I'm saying, if you're going to sit at the front row of the Oscars and everyone can build their jokes around you because they know you're in the front row, and everyone gets that info, who's going to be there, who you can bounce off of. You have to understand that you are, as far as, serving the Hollywood, as far as a feedback loop, that you're material.
But when has Jada been I mean, I'm not like big into the celebs here.
Yeah, no.
Jada's not. It's like family. It'd be kind of, honestly, it'd be kind of like making a joke at like the doofus kid. What's his name? Jaden. Like going after that kid's a space kid too. But Rock making a joke at Jaden's expense is also, in my opinion, off limits in this sort of occasion, because this is not a roast. This is the Oscars. Like you could talk about the nominees. The nominees are fine. If you want to make a joke about Smith being on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, or, Tell the Truth, or, any number of the other moments that he's had.
Yeah, the way he got there was through Will Smith, because he was telling a joke about Javier Bardem, I think, or Javier Bardem, and then it was like Javier Bardem's wishing Will Smith won instead of him because of some strange thing I don't really understand. And so then he pivots so quickly from Will to Jada. But yeah, as far as his, first of all, you're a comedian and you have so much to work off of, and this is what you pick.
You gotta own your freelance.
Right.
Look, not every, and I think I would have a much easier time being basically on Team Rock, more or less, if Rock has at any point in this intervening week acknowledged that the joke that he said was fundamentally a sexist, um, transphobic, insensitive because it was mocking disabilities. Very, very bad joke. He doesn't need to say, and thus I deserve to get hit over that. I don't even need him to go that far, but I at least need him to acknowledge that the joke that he made was shithouse. It was a shithouse, cruel, humiliating joke that I mean, when people go, well, he didn't know she had alopecia. Well, guess what? Now everyone in the fucking world knows she has alopecia. And what a horrible way to have that outed. What an awful way to have, and it really like ruined the entire evening for that family. Clearly, she was clearly distressed over it.
And so I think where Kareem's take on this kind of threads the needle is because he does admit in his take that Rock overstepped his bounds with the joke. And the point that Kareem tries to make is that I believe he frames it as, and we can look back at this again, as though as representatives of the African American community, we need to show that we have a resilience about this sort of thing. And I think that is the core of his argument. I can pull this up again, but
I get that, but man, doesn't that also overburden every single individual of a given race to be like quote unquote a credit to their race at all moments of all time? Yeah,
so
I kind of hate that. Like, because to me, it starts at was this a transgression bad enough where one could reasonably expect to get struck? And I keep going back to, and when Smith closed in on Rock just really didn't do himself any favors. There are three things he did that did him no favors. One, he looked at Smith and Jada and was like, that was a good joke, which it was not a good joke. It was a bad joke. Then Smith comes up on the stage, and Rock's got his hands behind his back like this, and he's smiling, which is like, especially if it's clear that it was not a good joke, which it should have been clear it was not a good joke by the time you're getting like rushed on the stage. He never says, I'm sorry. He never walks it back. If he goes, Will, no, and he's got his hands up and Smith strikes him, it's a completely different conversation from me. It really, he does nothing to disarm Smith because he thinks, and like this seems to be the thing with all the comedians this week, that there's this comedian shield that allows you to say shitty fucking things about people because you're the comedian. And like, the joke is a sacred island, and if you can land on it, you can indeed make a scathing thing.
Yes.
But if the joke is bad, if you miss Joke Island, you're in the ocean, and you like suffer the consequences and all the sharks and whatever else is in that ocean. And in this case, like, he made a really, really bad, he made a Michael Scott joke. It's a shitty Michael Scott joke.
Yeah, and I think he's trying to claim Don Rickles territory when he really worked Michael Scott territory. I think you're right there. And Don Rickles does something different there. Don Rickles could even make a joke about her, but it wouldn't be about her bald head. It wouldn't be a G.I. Jane joke. I don't know exactly how to contextualize that or give an example, but I think,
and you always just gotta be careful about jokes about people's appearance,
right?
Yeah, I mean, like, that's also some of the rules that Rock broke here are like kind of basic comedian rules that your appearance joke, unless it's killer, will often come off as shallow, petty, or weak. Like, you want to go for a nose joke. I got a big nose and it's kind of crooked, but boy, you better have a killer joke on the nose. Otherwise, it's just going to make it seem like you're sort of like grabbing at stuff.
All right. So how about this? When does when does a joke about Leonardo DiCaprio dating young women go too far?
Well, it is certainly different because it's about his lifestyle choices, right? So I think in that case, when you start talking in a way that makes it feel icky about the women, like Leonardo
So
DiCaprio.
I guess what you're saying is, as a comedian, it's easier to get lost in the gray here
Well,
over
yeah,
that
because
subject.
it's a
Right,
choice thing. Like
right,
DiCaprio could date age appropriate
right.
people
I'm
and
trying to think of
elects
other
not to.
jokes. I'm trying to think
So if
of
the
other
joke's
jokes.
about
Yeah.
DiCaprio, it's fine. When the joke is about a girl having, let's say, like the joke's now about the girl having daddy issues, and like the girl is now the center of the focus of the joke rather than Leonardo DiCaprio, the guy who's clearly the maker of the aberrant behavior. That'd be too far. Again, the way someone looks, you've always got to be really careful. Like you can't joke about someone having small tits. Like that's actually not okay in the year 2021. In a world where we're debating in this same Oscars whether it's appropriate for Ellen Page clips to be shown in something featuring Elliot Page, I think we really need to think about the G.I. Jane joke and where it actually sits in terms of acceptability. And like in my head, did like the thought experiment of, okay, let's remove the slap from the equation here. If you remove the slap from the equation and Jada Pinkett Smith and Will Smith are just like more or less frothing from the stands, you know? I mean, like screaming, he's like, fuck you, eat shit, or something like that. And it's like very audible or whatever. I think the Oscars ends up issuing an apology to Will Smith. And that Chris Rock is memory hold away, that we get Amy Schumer and her mortification for the rest of our lives. And that the discourse, capital T, capital D, this week centers around this idea that Chris Rock's joke was really unacceptable on any number of different levels, and it was right and good for the Smiths to be upset with him.
So right now, as far as what I've heard, all of the already booked Chris Rock shows, the black market value for his tickets have gone through the roof.
And he's not even saying anything about it. The wimp.
So in this parallel universe where the Smiths did what they did, what happens to his black market value right now? It plummets, or what?
Yeah, I think it goes down. Yes, I'm with you. I think this has been net good for him, even though there are now people such as myself who like are disgusted with Chris Rock. Like, I actually think it's gross that he's been turned into a hero in this situation. I don't view Smith as a hero, but the idea that like Chris Rock did anything good, or when they're like, oh, he showed such incredible poise. Oh, what was he gonna do? Fight back because he had the moral high ground of calling somebody's wife like a baldy man-looking dude?
That's right.
Oh boy, what a laudable moment that would have been for Chris Rock.
So how is Chris Rock supposed to respond in light of being?
I applaud him for taking the L. You know what I mean? Like taking the L across the face, like that. Okay, he took the L. Good. I'll give him credit on that. But again, he's not a hero. Right. You're not a hero if you're taking an L.
Right, but I don't know how Chris Rock is supposed to respond by the wrong-headed media treatment. I don't know how he's supposed to, like is he supposed to call out the media who is currently helping him?
It's weird, right?
Like I get what you're saying, but I still don't. I still don't have.
I don't know. I think that's why he's sort of towing this weird middle ground, because I think even I'd be interested to see what the conversation was like between Rock and his wife.
Yeah,
again, This is a guy who directed the movie Good Hair, a generational documentary on African American hair culture and the importance of hair to appearance, especially among the African American community, and all of the work and effort that goes into it. The man spent years researching
So
this.
if I was to suspect anything getting in the way between Chris Rock contextualizing this here and not getting why this is such an overstep, maybe he sees the Smiths as, instead of more of a representation of African American culture, more of a representation of Hollywood Scientologists.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I was almost going to go there too, where it's like now you have to get into the specifics of the Smiths. I am not a Will and Jada Smith authoritative person.
Well, in
like
my
as
opinion,
I said, I love the celebs. Yeah. We know this. This is a celeb show, but so I actually don't know anything about them really.
I'm going to prove that this is a celeb show. Damn it! I'm going to bring up Andy Warhol here.
DJ Jazzy Jeff is one of my top 5 favorite DJs.
So one of the points in the Andy Warhol documentary that came out at Netflix that was, I think, pretty valid is that people gave Andy Warhol some sort of cred for having a connection to the African American community, when the connections he had were folks the likes of Grace Jones and Michael Jackson. These are not people, and this is not my take, just specifically, but I think I will be an advocate for it. But the documentary said that, like, he was given credit in the art world as being some sort of conduit and being some sort of, when in reality his connection was to African Americans who were extremely famous, and had it not been for their fame, he would have nothing in common with these people. And so I do see Chris Rock possibly just in his day-to-day understanding of the Smiths, considering the Smiths as more Hollywood Scientologists than fellow African Americans.
And this now gets into like the checklist of things that I don't feel qualified enough to opine on.
Right, and I have to stop right there.
No, the slap culture and Scientology. I've read stuff on this. I just don't know enough about it to like give
That's
you
a
any.
thing?
Yeah, it's apparently a thing. Like apparently the slap is used to like to break your, I don't know, your thetans or some shit. It's like I don't fucking know. Like the planet Xenu nukes and the volcanoes, they use slaps. Apparently that's a Scientology thing. I don't know enough about it. Clearly,
was Chris Rock cursed? Did that happen? As far as Will Smith is concerned,
did the hex get put on him when the 5 fingers met the face?
Yeah, and how do you feel about this now that you know that Will Smith cursed Chris Rock with the slap?
If Rock had the hex put on him, I think that's a bit far. I mean, I think what was said was said. Slap was slap. No need for hex. No need for hex. Yeah. I wouldn't do that.
I found your asterisk.
Yeah, moment is past. Moment is past. You can't generationally curse the man. Like that's fucked up.
Or can you?
One could. I don't think it is. My position is I do not think it is correct or good to generationally hex the man. I would not. And then obviously I feel like we covered that one. I gotta move on. Black hair culture. I don't actually feel like super comfortable getting into it any deeper than we have at this point. Suffice it to say that, like, I feel like I understand more than zero on that subject.
Well, I understand more than zero on bald joke culture. How about that?
That's also true. Yeah, and then like bald joke culture, and then like double that for a woman. Like,
No, I remember a specific line. I remember a specific moment on a DART bus where someone called me a skinhead, and I said, dude, give me 5 minutes and I'll find you a picture of my last haircut and you'll understand why I have this haircut. It's not racially motivated. Like, it's because there is no other option. Like plan B is making something of this, and that's not tenable. And you're wrong.
You bring up one last point that I had sort of not even included in my list that I was like rattling off the other day. Ball jokes. Comedians know better than ball jokes. Ball jokes are fucking lazy.
They
Like,
are.
yeah, like that, like, you know, like they're almost always not funny. Man, occasion, like, but like that's like trying to go for the grand slam or something like that. It's so it's all and not even worth it. Like you're just better to just knock it and keep the bases moving around. It's
I
just, yeah.
I feel like the last time a ball joke somewhat landed was because people knew LeBron James was uncomfortable about it.
Right. No, you know why a ball joke tends to be good is when a person is covering it up. Trump, LeBron, like
Yeah.
LeBron with the like headbands and like the one. I know I've sent this to you. The graphic of like the different headbands through the like the headband progression. That's funny. It's not.
I can laugh at that.
Right.
You can't laugh
No,
at
I'm
that.
allowed to.
I can't.
I'm allowed to
I'm
laugh.
allowed-
Yeah. You stop. But that's not. It's not funny because of the denial. It's funny because of, or it's not funny because of the balding. It's funny because of the covering up. You know what I mean?
that's right,
Yeah,
that's
right.
right.
Yeah, like the real crux of that is, oh, he's covering it up, and like it's like ridiculous how much, like, you know.
But that doesn't transfer over to the African American community because
No,
covering
and
it up
also
means wearing a wig. And
Jada was not covering up anything.
Right,
If anything, she was
yeah.
trying to make a very out-facing state. Like that's the worst part is, to your point, she could do a wig. She
Yeah.
elected very visibly to not do the wig and embraced her bald head look in a public facing way. And I don't know if it was the first time or one of the first times, but I think it's like one of the first times at minimum. And during that one of the first times moment, Rock goes for a cheap shot on it and
Yeah.
says, "You look like a man."
And I think one of the things that makes me a little haywire about this issue is, in my opinion, a woman with a shaved head is just exuding confidence. And for someone, I know that the alopecia part of this is not something where it's chosen for her, but it doesn't seem as though she is an unconfident bald person. It seems as though she has figured out a look that I would give respect. I give respect to. I think if you
It's a
look
great
at her-
look. No, it's a great look for her. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, yeah.
Now,
like,
also,
yeah.
some people are just cursed with asymmetrical heads as well, and she doesn't have one of those. She looks appropriate with a bald head, and there are some people that, if you get alopecia and then you have this head that is asymmetrical, you're dealing with a much different problem of the look of pulling this off. But I think part of me is like, why is she not confident, or is this about her not being confident? And it feels like there's some angle of like, how dare you insult me with this thing that hurts me? Now I'm going to continue my confidence as I continue to have a bald head. Like I know that I'm not allowing her the space to be.
So you know what I
hurt
think
by
it
this,
is?
but-
I think when it's like when we're saying confident here, I think we have to contextualize what this type of confidence is versus general confidence, right? Like this sort of confidence is more like working on arriving at confidence. It's more like a to be an asshole philosopher here, a Heideggerian confidence where you're trying to approach that point. You're not quite there yet.
Okay. Yeah.
You're coming
That's what
to.
I'm talking about.
So it would be like I'll give you another example. Let's imagine a celeb, I don't know who. They lose their leg. And they choose to like appear at an award ceremony. We'll say it's a female. In a slip gown that showcases the metallic replacement leg that this person now has. Again, the celebrity's married to someone else who's also a celebrity. I'm just like not even gonna name names. It's not relevant here. Like, what's not okay is to then make a joke about how she's getting ready to appear as the first female Terminator.
Okay.
one step closer to being the first Terminator.
Yeah.
No, she's wearing the leg. She's doing the gown with the leg
Yeah.
because she's like getting ready to own it. This whole like, ha ha ha, you're the Terminator now thing, or like you're gonna be Mega Man someday. Like, no, get ready to upload your consciousness onto the internet. Is not actually a funny thing to hear when you've just lost your limb and you're still getting used to that. I don't know that it would actually be cool ever, and that's like I guess the secondary question here. Again, let's assume she lost the arm, and someone makes a joke she's going to be Mega Man now that she's got the mecha arm. You
You know
know,
what? This is hitting too close to real. I swear Paul McCartney was married to a woman
he was,
who
yeah.
lost a leg in a, was it a bomb? Like she was always an advocate for unexploded landmines or something, and I don't know if that's how she lost
Yeah,
it.
I remember this
But
though. Yeah.
I feel like back in the bad days of the '90s, I feel like there was some Paul McCartney wife jokes. This is interesting. Yeah, that's pretty, it's pretty close to something at least with a background to it. I'm gonna have to look that up. I swear there were some really bad jokes related to his wife
Yeah,
that used to be appropriate.
but probably were never appropriate to do, and even those comedians at the time knew better than to
Right,
do them in front of Paul,
right,
right? Yeah,
yeah, right.
and not for nothing. Paul's probably the type of guy who would come and give you five across the eyes. So if we're
That's
talking,
true.
yeah,
That's
if we're
true.
talking about 90s, 80s, or 90s, Paul probably didn't give you five across the eyes.
Yeah, yeah.
Paul loves his wives. Yeah, like he loved Linda. And it seems like all of his marriages were very, like deep and committed. He's a passionate guy. No, he'd give you five across the eyes. Uh, I mean, look, I think I think it is a matter of debate. Like the rushing of the stage is so like aggressive. It's real questionable. Like if Smith had caught up to Rock at the after party and given him five across the eyes, I don't think like you can really kind of even question that. I think where I sort of like land in the middle ground, I go like, okay, I'm with you. Like it was too far. Doing it right on the stage at that moment or whatever. Um, at the same time, I just keep circling back to, well, who's the catalyst for that? Fucking Chris Rock is. Chris Rock chose to go off script. Chris Rock formulated that joke, and like that joke got that reaction, and like you gotta
All right.
own your words. You
So
gotta own your words.
speaking of, you have to own your words. I think it's also based on him going off script. If you knew that this was green lighted by someone else, do you feel different?
I mean, dude, if I knew this was greenlit by someone else, I think Smith and Pinkett like go nuclear.
Right, but not on
Yeah.
Chris Rock. But not
Well,
on Chris Rock.
no, because I mean, like, look, I mean, if it's his script, he submitted it in the Oscars. People were like, "Oh, that's fine." Like, dude, like, I mean, I don't without even knowing the specifics of the Smiths. That shouldn't have been fine. And so and with whatever specifics I know about like their weirdness, again, I'm not qualified enough to talk about their biographies. That'd be another thing on the
Right.
checklist. But I do know like they're kind of known as volatile people. Especially Jada. I don't care. Again, I don't care about the conspiracies or any of that stuff. Oh, that's I don't give a shit about the conspiracy. Like, I mean, if you find out that it was written by Rock, submitted to the Oscars, they reviewed it. I mean, like that moment. So I'm supposed to get an Oscar this night, but also like included in this evening's like fucking way beyond the line shot at my wife's appearance.
Okay, so
Ugh.
speaking of I'm supposed to get it, and he did get an Oscar. Did you catch much of his speech as he won the Oscar? And how appropriate do you think it was for him to connect the Williams story to his own story?
So I think I've only seen it once or twice, but I know the little moment that you're talking about here. Boy, I mean, there's a number of things. It's like I don't think they should have made him go, but like he should have been told, "Hey, you're getting the Oscar and you're saying nothing. Like you're gonna go up, you're gonna hold up the Oscar, you're gonna say, I want to thank
Yeah.
you got you
Imagine your Will Smith's
your
agent.
little
Yeah.
multi-minute speech is now one paragraph. I want
Yeah.
to thank blank 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 blank, and I also want to thank blank 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 blank. I love blank blank blank. Thank you. Good night. That's all you get now, Will. Like that should have been what's going on there. I thought it was weird to like try to make it like a day. I this is where Smith created problems for himself and sort of like opened up the discord to this by trying to make this like historicity argument that like this connects back to the Williamses, and I'm like this other notable black historical figure that I played in a film and stuff. Now it made people go like, well, what does that say about black culture? And what does that, what does that mean in terms of civility and blah blah blah? Like it made the moment more meta. Like Smith started opening the door, then in a way, I guess that sort of like makes it sort of more inexcusable. If he had just kept it about a man and his wife and like a line being crossed, it's one thing. When you go like just showing that we have a proud tradition of being whatever, I don't even know what the word would be. I think that's a much more tenuous argument. Clearly,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I think if you're Will Smith's agent, yeah, you tell him say as little as possible, and
Yeah.
don't make
Boy.
what just happened connect to the movie that you were an actor in and you did not write or direct, or you were just
The implicit argument in his speech is that somehow what he did made the night more real. Towards the, like, it was in service of the performance in the movie, and like that's again, I'm kind of pro slap if you can't tell. That's a baffling argument. No, no.
Yeah, I'm not as much pro slap, but I am. You had to see the slap coming. I don't know how that's different than pro slap, but
I mean, like, yeah, it acknowledges transgress. Yeah, you know what I mean. Like, okay, I'm with you. Maybe I am in sort of like the door was opened to slap, and like the slap was in the bounds of reasonable expectations.
yes.
After that, yeah, like doesn't make what the guy does is right per se, but like he slapped not punch. So like when you see like Judd Apatow being like he could have killed him, like oh come on. It's a slap. It's a slap. Like, there's a reason they do slap competitions on ESPN
Yeah.
with dudes who are like Herculean, and no one's worried about what if you slap him and kill him. And these guys are huge. They're massive. Talk about Will Smith here. Talk about Will Smith. Like if one of those pro slapper guys came up on behalf of Will Smith and like did like a competition slap to Rock, okay, sure. Like waylaid him, okay. Like nah, it was slap, not punch. He didn't tackle. He didn't, he didn't kick him in the nut. Like that. It was. It was right at the line, but like, I mean, I can't say like, was it right, man? But like, boy, Rock had like 3 opportunities there to stop it from happening, and he definitely didn't. It was a good joke. Oh, you're coming on the stage like instead of like, sorry, and then this thing that this is like the universal symbol for hit me, I don't take you seriously. Even if you don't think it is, it so obviously is. Don't hit me. The universal symbol for that is you have your hands up. Your hands are open, like you're not even trying to throw a fist or anything. You're just trying to stop fists from coming in, and you're covering your face. That's don't hit me. This is I'm not even scared of you. I don't even need my hands for this one.
Yeah. I think to go one notch away from this, I did think the connection we were chatting about related to Rogan was interesting. because the three of the Rogan connection to Spotify and the Oscar, there's something like what Rogan's. Go
real
ahead.
quickly
Go ahead.
before you jump rails to this, I just
Yeah.
want to make sure they catch up with us here.
Yeah.
So Rogan has a comedian on, and like all of the white comedians now, they're saying things like, "Well, geez, Louise, what if people could just come up and start hitting us now?" Which, like, again, the answer continues to be on this, like, what, like, if you see someone's at the show and they are mentally handicapped, don't make a retarded joke about them and you'll probably be okay. Like, don't make a bald joke, probably gonna be okay. That's a good rule to run with. I mean, really, like, if Rocket just ran with that basic one, which is also good for ending up with stronger comedic material too. Don't make a bald joke, you're off to the races here. You don't have this problem. But then Joe Rogan goes one step further and talks about Smith's actions and is like, what Smith did was so unacceptable because he modeled bad behavior on such a large platform. And sure, maybe not everyone is going to model the behavior that Will Smith modeled, but some people might. There might be some people now who come up on the stage and slap comedians.
Yes.
And that would be bad and unacceptable. And like the obvious thing that I commented on is, Joe Rogan doing what he does best, weighing in on the matters of the world without possibly applying how his take applies to himself.
Yeah. So it does seem like it worthwhile to put that thought experiment through, because he is claiming, or his listenership, I guess, is crying more foul than he is about certain episodes have been removed now that I'm on Spotify, and only certain things are.
Well, he's still doing this whole thing of, I won't do this if I have to walk on eggshells thing. But like, to your point, essentially what he is making an argument for is a deplatforming of Will Smith because of this one thing, which is very much cancel culture. We're canceling Will Smith because like he broke Joe Rogan's comedian code.
But the code is also saying the platform matters. You can't perform your calculus until you understand the platform, and that is admitting that once you are on Spotify, there's a new set of rules. But he isn't admitting that. He is crying foul as though, why can't I just do my thing and be on Spotify?
He still thinks that he's like this teeny tiny podcast that's doing like 50,000 views on YouTube or whatever. And the reality is he is one of the biggest operators in media, and the right still kind of like they've stopped actually kayfabing with this too. Like, he's just not an indie podcast. So like, yeah, I think sometimes he believes his own hype here too. But yeah, no, okay, Joe, take your argument seriously then. I guess you need to start modeling better behavior and tell people to go and get vaccinated and like actually take certain stances that you're not taking. Because there's this risk, Joe, that when you say, I don't know about these vaccines or ivermectin's good, even though yet another study has come out saying that ivermectin doesn't do anything and didn't work, that maybe people took ivermectin, and even like if just a small amount of people did that, just like if one person rushes the stage at a comedian who makes a bad joke somewhere ever in the United States, that's probably Will Smith's fault, and thus it's probably your fault, Joe.
Yeah, and so
they never take the argument. Yeah,
yeah. So we have did Will Smith make other people slap comedians, and then we have, did Joe Rogan make other people take the wrong drugs when they got COVID? I mean, one of these problems is more substantial than the other.
One of these has already happened.
Yes, exactly.
I would like to I'll go further.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan's construction is hypothetically this could happen, and if so, it would be bad. It has not happened yet. So let's apples to apples this and say that Rogan's construction is right. We must fight against this future. It also happened with Joe Rogan.
Yeah. Versus the would-be comedian threat. Yes. Yeah. I feel like we covered.
I don't know.
Bases.
I don't know where else to go with it, people. I hope you all enjoyed that discourse. Here's what I will say about this. I guess this will kind of pivot us into the next subject here. I have noticed this week that there are really two sorts of subsets of libs, progressives, left of center types. And the term I sort of coined for them in our little group chat are the violence is never okay liberals and the what I call the fight for your family liberals. The type of people who basically go, like, no, like, I'm teaching my kids not to punch other people in the face. But if you come and you cross the line with my wife, my children, my dog, you know what I mean? Like any number of things. Yes, at that point, I will fight you, and I am teaching my family those same values. These are the values I expect out of, like, there are certain lines you don't cross in this family. And they generally are centered around the family. So it's not, no, you don't go and fight someone if they just like, sir, I challenge you to satisfaction. Like, it's not like, like old style duels or whatever. But like, yeah, no, like there are like certain things. This shouldn't, it's weird. And we can talk about this side real quickly before we pivot. Like, it's weird that conservatives are having a hard time processing this because these are the same people who want you to have a gun to protect your family, right? Like, so I think this subset's pretty clear. It's just like, I fight for my family. I'm not going to kill for my family because, like, I'm not like necessarily super into killing. I would if I had to. But the same conservatives who would like just shoot someone when they really should just fight them, like, are like, fight for your family, liberals. Where's this coming from? You also, barbarians.
Yeah. Are you going to make the same set of jokes when you're in an open carry audience? I don't know. Or maybe if you have to make different jokes, you should anyway.
I feel like that's illustrative of another point. Yeah, right. If it's suddenly a bad idea in an open carry audience, was it ever a good idea? Is an interesting question.
There's Bill Hicks making fun of the waitress, making fun of him. What are you, some reader?
We got ourselves a reader.
Yeah. And so you're making fun of, if when Bill Hicks does that joke in the South, he's taking a risk because someone's mama out there works for Waffle House. But you're not exactly. It's different. It's not as specific. No one has to know that your mama works at Waffle House. But he's not making a joke about someone specifically in the audience. He's making a joke about culture, which you can deny and you can walk out on, but it's not you, the you with that culture. I think there's still a way to do pointed things to people who might be carrying and not have that happen.
So this new development of the violence is never okay liberal cohort alarms me. I'm not going to lie, especially as they seem to have won the day in the media, because this violence is never okay cohort sort of like seeds the first movement to the incivil person. The violence is never okay cohort of liberals is basically like the mirror image of the civility Republicans. And the problem with civility culture is that you are ever ceding ground to the incivil side of the aisle. They do something incivil, and rather than pushing back against them, which would be incivil in its own way, you do nothing, which somehow regains civility, and you just cede a little bit of territory. It's right, a little bit. It's also, a little bit of Neville Chamberlain.
Yeah, but also do nothing is so much different to them than the active interest in civil disobedience, or yes, in yes. some sort of nonviolent aggressive tactic. It's different. it's
No,
more along the lines
do
of,
nothing is close to take it, because like as essentially the
right,
answer
right,
for what they would have Will Smith do is sit there, and his wife sits there, and they just accept the slight and act like it's not a like essentially the answer from a lot of the violence is never okay civility caucus is that the joke was fine,
right.
and so the joke was somehow not offensive enough to reach the point of being a deep slight, like even if you want to say not physical violence, okay, sure, deep slight, surely. And it doesn't, the problem with this violence is never okay thing, much in the same way as we'll see this kind of poured into like political solutions, is it doesn't actually solve for what are Will and Jada supposed to do. They have to go home together, they have to live with this moment. Should they not be seeking an apology out of Chris Rock? Like is it supposed to be like, just hope that society or something will shame Chris Rock into apologizing for having done the bad thing? And does that undo the bad thing in a moment that was supposed to be a great moment for him? No, it doesn't. He never gets that day back. Even if he gets an apology down the line, he never actually gets the moment back. Like Rock has taken something that Rock cannot replace here. And like the violence is never okay civility caucus is sort of like, well, the answer is you just take that. And I think that like if you really think about that, that's unsatisfactory.
Yeah, it's unsatisfactory to me, and I don't know how you confront them with anything other than there are different ways to do nothing. Because it's one thing to say like, look, you should really be doing something more active about this, and it's another way of to tell these people who are so used to doing nothing, like, here's how you're coming off as you're doing nothing. There are different ways to come off as you do nothing. The ways that I need you to just tweak your non-response is not that much effort out of you. Like, that's the whole point about the whole non-response. Like I wonder, like, with the Smith thing, if he just said, keep my wife's name out of your fucking mouth, and just said that twice, if it would be more powerful, like if the words that he said would be more powerful without the slap, or if that even matters. But if you're trying to get through to this crowd who just doesn't see any sort of violent reaction or violence as some sort of way, that yeah, you're ceding ground before it even becomes something like that. Isn't there some sort of this is some sort of strategic parallel in conflict, when the aggressor knows where your line is, it's kind of like,
They just keep pushing the line forward a little bit.
yeah,
I mean, like
well,
this
yeah, when you say you're leaving Afghanistan in 12 months,
civility culture is essentially the losing side of the trench warfare against the incivil. Is sort of the way I think about this. Like when they're sitting here and be like, well, we gotta be polite, we gotta be, blah blah. No, I'm sorry. If you've got people who want to do fundamentally uncivil things, they are going to need to be resisted in a way that will sometimes come off as mean, because like, look, they're mean people who want to do mean things. When I say mean things, I mean, I mean like restricting access to contraceptive care, not just abortive services now, but restricting access to contraceptive care for women. This is not a nice thing to do. It would not be a nice thing for me to go and take away
yeah.
somebody's birth control if I did that individually. It's a mean thing.
What
And the
does this
people who want to do this are mean people, and you're going to have
yeah,
moments where it's not going to be pleasant or comfortable. Like the mean people are not going to just realize they're mean and degrinchify themselves and have a kumbaya session and we're all smiling at the end. They're going to have to be defeated. They're going to have to be defeated.
what does this crowd think is would have been the best response to the Capitol riots?
I think honestly, they think that the committee is the best response. This do nothing committee is actually probably right up their alley. And if we have one of them on right now, they would be like, well, we have a committee on that. And you and I, of course, would like chuckle and go like, yeah, all right, it's a race against the clock, the electoral clock. Who you betting on? And how much
So
money would you want to put down? And your Brian's like pulling out his wallet. Like we were talking about investments before the show. I got a different idea, Chris. Getting double on the nothing on these. No, because like that committee isn't going to do anything, and Merrick Garland is absolutely not going to do anything. But like that whole violence is never the answer thing. It's again basically a mirror of civility. So they want to let the system work here. Like don't force the issue.
yeah, see, so to bring this back to a comedian, there's a recent comedy special on Netflix that was through Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle, like, I don't know if he funded this, or guy's name is Earthquake. And Earthquake did a bit on like, imagine, like, and this guy was also a former military, served in the military. And he said, I have imagined myself as a Capitol Guard. And like, and I'm imagining the opportunity to shoot these people. And I don't know when I would stop shooting these people. Like, and that's basically the opposite of that. But what I'm saying is those same people would sit in that crowd and listen to him make a joke about that and laugh their ass off. And I don't understand how you can laugh at that and not walk out of that if that's how you really believe. But I know they'll get there. They'll go there. And they'll laugh at that joke, even though they say that violence is never the answer.
Violence is never the answer, but in that case, they go, well, but state usage of violence is justified. The state does have the monopoly on violence. And moreover, essentially saying that the people who were involved in the Capitol protests, as they're laughing, without realizing it, that they should be facing much more deep justice than they're currently facing. And that's sort of the whole problem with the violence is never the answer. Civility, let's sit down and try to reason with these Republicans. They'll come to their senses. Like the stuff I've been talking about so much to the point where I felt like I've not actually had things to riff on at times. And so I'm like, getting ready to tape. I'm like, oh, we're going to talk about this again. But it's the same stuff. The violence is never the answer thing. Like this Will Smith thing ports into the Supreme Court thing, ports into the Ukraine thing, because like this is a problem with modern liberalism and why it is not up to the challenges and the tasks of facing modern conservatism down at a state level. And the thing is, I'm saying this with the privilege of being a white dude who is straight. I, don't have to worry about trans issues. I don't have to worry about contraceptive access. And yet at the same time, I am seeing it all around me. I am seeing the fear. I am seeing the concern. And that's from the outside looking in on Privilege Hill. It's not conjectural anymore. And these violence are never the answer types are also the same ones who I think in a lot of cases get to live on conjectural hill, on Privilege Hill with me. But instead of looking from Privilege Hill down and having a better view of the battlefield, they're looking from Privilege Hill down and going like, cool, at least the water's not coming up here. And it's nauseating to me. Because like, if you don't go down and fight for these people's rights, which is going to require upsetting some Christians and having some incivil moments with some Christians and Bible thumpers, because that's who it is. Let's like cut to the chase here. Who are the ones who want to outlaw abortion? Who are the ones who want to like make it so you can't say gay and try to wind that back and maybe repeal Obergefell? Contraceptive services. These are Christians. These are people who are doing this for metaphysics. You're going to have some incivil moments. You're going to have to occasionally say things that are incivil, like, I'm sorry, you can believe whatever you want on Sunday, but you can't actually make us believe your metaphysical stuff. Like, that's not okay. We can't all live under your metaphysics, and I know you love God and like he's real to you, and that's exactly how I feel. God is real to you, and you should have that right to have God be real to you. But when you make God real and really make God the law of the land, it's not okay. I'm sorry. It's gonna require uncomfortable moments where you make Christians uncomfortable, in civil moments, and that's the problem with violence is never the answer. That's the problem with civility politics, and like, I mean, then that gets us to the Supreme Court here. Great that we're getting Kentucky Jackson Brown on the court. I gotta tell you, watching the hearings, the more I heard her and the more you listened to her, like when she wasn't getting like berated or whatever, and she was just like being herself, I really like her. Like I think I liked Sotomayor a lot. I'm still a big Sotomayor fan. There's something about her that's real cool. But I mean, there's something about Jackson feels like a real person in the way that like all the rest of them kind of don't. Like, and I'm like really excited for her to be on the court. I think she's gonna write some fantastic opinions and like just be a fantastic writer. But let's not kid ourselves that like making this court 3-6 again is fixing it. It's nothing. It's nothing.
Yeah, if uh if I had to wonder about the overall net gain and net loss of getting behind Biden as opposed to someone else, I think one of the things you wonder is, um,
Well, the problem
as
with Liz
well,
and Bernie is they're both kind of violence is never okay liberals.
no, well, as far as the Supreme Court nomination goes, you wonder when any president gets the chance, who are you going to actually pick? And among the people you could have picked, how far to the left or to the center do you go? Or to on the flip side, how
So
far to the right you go?
this actually,
So
no, you bring up something interesting here because it made me think about the civility thing one more time. The whole reason Jackson's going to get on the court is because the Republicans have decided to not be incivil here.
right,
But what was the Democrats' plan had the Republicans actually decided to not be civil here?
yeah, I
It's
don't
not
know.
clear. It's not clear to me that they had much of a play. Like Mitch McConnell's going to let this one clear through. I think it's because they're real sus on Clarence Thomas's health and they want to keep their powder dry for that. But if McConnell had chosen to pull the Manchin lever and be like, "It's flip time, Joe. I'm ready to cash that chip." What was their plan? What was their plan?
Yeah, and from there, let's say uh let's say Bernie won instead of Biden. Who was Bernie going to nominate instead of her? And based on nominating that person, what experience, how is it going to be any different than the way it was?
I think it makes it even easier to pull the Manchin lever. And I feel it's the same way with Warren too. So like, don't like let it people go. This is Chris is just bashing Bernie thing. I'm
No.
just you're looking at the lay of the land here, and Jackson is I think about as good as you could hope for. And
From
I
what
don't.
I heard, there were three possible
It wasn't the
African American
Clyburn one.
females.
At least it wasn't the Clyburn one.
Okay, I didn't know. I didn't know of a Clyburn connection to.
No, there
any of
was.
the,
There was
okay.
and the Clyburn one sucked. There was the one that Clyburn and Graham liked. That was from South Carolina. And
Okay.
she was not good. So I mean, I think we are given the makeup of Congress living in the best of all possible worlds. But this again gets me back to the violence is never the answer. Civility. Let's not rock the boat crowd. If you don't think about a world where the Senate works differently, a world where where you start to think about bigger, more bedrock issues, and you're just trying to play the game on this very sort of narrow, uneven, fundamentally unfair board. This is the world you operate in. Kentucky Jackson Brown's about as good as you can expect. Not bad. But like about as good as you can expect, and it's gonna be 3-6, and even if Joe Biden gets a chance to replace Clarence Thomas, let us whisper of a dream. I don't know that that chance is going to manifest into a reality. I don't think he can get the court back to 5-4, 5-4 on the losing side. I don't think he can do it.
Yeah, based on how far along things were when McConnell pulled the Biden rules stunt. If Clarence Thomas if Clarence Thomas were to step down after the midterms, it definitely wouldn't be before the midterms. I couldn't see anything that happens after the midterms is Biden rule engaged. It's not even a precedence that McConnell would have to make. He can just say, "Hey, this was the deal for what was it, Gorsuch, and this will be the deal again."
And he'll propose, just if anything, he will propose removing seats from the Supreme Court to make it more clear. They will have this entire great argument of expand the court. Why not condense it? And the way that will work is that they can basically condense the court all the way down to 6, and they still only have 3-3. Like they can basically start shedding members for 2 more things, and like, unless you think Alito's going to stroke out or something like that, even if that happens, they can just keep going. No, we're not for expanding the court. We're for contracting the court. Democrats want to expand it. We want to contract it. Yeah, that's how they're going to play this. That's the math now. They've set themselves up real nicely for this.
I like how you can make a small government play and just line that up with your small Supreme Court and your whole, most people will just follow you down that road.
The genius of so much of the Republican shit is that it's so self-serving, but like it actually, dude, it's like they're great arguments. Like they're great weasel arguments, because you just start with small is good as like your fundamental faulty premise that small equals good, and you can kind of work a whole bunch of bullshit from that.
Yes, we have the smallest good crowd versus the we can't decide if occasionally being violent is okay crowd. I
like
there we go.
I mean, yeah. So again, it's not like, are there lines where it meets the occasion to fight? And I like,
yeah. And on the flip
Supreme
side,
Court to me is going to be one of those. Why do I say that? It goes back to those exact same groups of people, those imperiled groups of people I mentioned. We didn't even get to like immigrants and stuff. Like, if you don't fight for them, they are going to get squished. They're the first ones on the front line. Like, I don't think people are really wrestling with the idea of what's it going to be like. Let's say you're in your late 20s, early 30s, and you're dating somebody, been dating for like, I don't know, 5-6 months. It's going right. Things are cool. You don't know if, she don't know, you don't know. Or you're her, and you switch the genders. It doesn't matter. Or don't switch the genders and make them the same gender. Doesn't matter. You're not sure all the way. Well, I guess actually in this case it does matter. You're not sure all the way if this is the person you want to like have a family with or whatever, but you guys are sexually active. You use condoms sometimes. She accidentally gets pregnant. Now all of a sudden you don't have choices. You guys are both grown adults who like go to the liquor store, who like get rental cars and stuff. But like her option is essentially, in some cases, is in this future not even going to be to go out of state. She is going to be required to move away forever in order to have an abortion. That is the future. That, like, if we don't fight for it, this is what we are conscripting, us as men, the women in our lives who we care about or are involved with, and also our children, and then also trans groups. I mean, any number of other groups here. That doesn't even get into like the critical race theory and shit like that. The removing books from. If we don't, the books thing's a good example though. If you don't fight for what's in your school library, guess what? They're just going to keep pulling stuff out until there's nothing left but the Bible. And a couple of American history books written by right-wing authors like Dinesh D'Souza.
Yeah, that's a scary road to consider.
The road of, it's not fun to fight, but you've got to have things worth fighting for in this life. It's what gives us purpose.
Yeah,
Why? It's
I still have.
why saying something worth fighting for is a tired cliche. It's because it's so essential to who we are as people.
Yeah, there's still a big disconnect I have with this crowd who is adherent to nonviolence, but is not proponent of nonviolent forms of aggression. It would seem that that would go hand in hand,
No,
seeing as
no,
that is your only real weapon,
but
because
that's
you have.
why I say it's really downstream of civility. It is that even nonviolence is in civil. Martin Luther King got arrested.
Yeah,
How rude is that? Probably. I mean, they had to dispatch police. It was a disruption. Sirens were occurring. People's dinners were disrupted. Brunches were ruined. And this is what I'm saying. Like the violence is never the answer, crowd. And this is why, in particular, if you're a lefty and you think you're part of this group, really think about what being part of that group's putting you in league with here. Because I submit to you that you can't be pro-revolution and pro-civility.
well, it's also disheartening that there is such a narrow lane politically, because on the flip side, you have the violence is okay, but then you get too far into the violence okay is okay, and that crowd on the left also adheres to other opinions.
Right. And this is why, again, I really want to make my ideology, if you fight for your family or there are some things worth fighting for, that's the shorthand for where I stand on this stuff, politically speaking, or, interpersonally. Like, there are things in this life worth fighting for, at least for me. And it's funny, if you go back to the last episode, I'm talking about this stuff like a month ago. So, I talk about sort of like having shit that's worth fighting for is sort of like an animating thing for me. It's important. If you don't care about anything enough at that level, like, I don't know what's the point of anything anymore. Where is one glean purpose? I guess is what I'd say. Like things have to rise to that level of love, at least for me, in this world. And yeah, I think that needs to happen politically speaking. And then that gets us into our last topic here, which is Ukraine. As we are talking now, I don't want to use the word stalemate. Like that feels like the wrong terminology here. But like the Russians definitely feel like they do not have a path to victory at this point. And that they are sort of trying to figure out how to manufacture a moment that looks decisive enough that they can manufacture a victory celebration out of that thing. And that seems increasingly fleeting. And also, the operations are increasingly helter-skelter. Like this thing about all the soldiers getting nuclear radiation exposure, all the Russian soldiers. I mean,
Mm.
you asked the question. I think it's a fair one. How far up the chain of command does one have to think about that? Like seems like
If you're
seems like
sending troops into Chernobyl,
yeah,
you give them a rundown.
yeah.
It could be even a short rundown, but don't dig is part of it, right?
I mean, it seems to me like there's a human rights issue for the Russian soldiers. I know, like, we're not necessarily
Yeah,
thinking they're the
because
most,
you
but then
shouldn't.
because they
No,
should be
that's
thrown into these situations. Like it part of like modern warfare is supposed to be like, no, you're not supposed to suicide bomber your troops like this. As a state actor, to me, as the weeks have gone on, I mean, it's been 4 weeks since we've weighed in on this. Biden has crossed multiple red lines on this one for me. Once you call Vladimir Putin a war criminal, and he has said that multiple times, he says what's happening is war crimes. I'm sorry, that means something, and that has things attached to it. Kind of like the same way that, like, if like I called Brian a drug dealer, he is not. The reason I do not say that is because that if I call Brian a drug dealer, there are things implicatively to that. Like the cops should take action against Brian. Like there is a chain of that. This is why you don't, for example, call someone like Republicans are doing pedophiles, because when you say that, like that, there's a chain of actions that sequence consequences off of this. You don't call someone like a rapist. Chain of actions that follows off of that. Like beyond it just being a scurrilous thing to say, part of why it is so scurrilous is because there's actually a sequence of events. When you call someone a war criminal, there is an implied chain of action off of that. And either Biden has been loosely saying this phrase in a way that is absolutely reprehensible because it makes it meaningless, or worse, or maybe not as actually, no, I think that's the worst one. Or kind of what I think is more likely here, Biden is saying it, and then people are like, whoa, 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 it shouldn't do anything. Like the people in the White House who know better, the foreign policy establishment types, are stopping him, but like Biden is having these like random old man moments of clarity, like senility clarity, where he says the true thing and he probably shouldn't have. He's right. What Vladimir Putin is doing is war crimes. Having people dig up radioactive soil is like fucking wrong. I don't know, like 2 or 3 different levels. It's not much like the earlier story here. It's not like one level of bad. It's like multiple level. I mean, like I mean, the gene pool thing. Like this is a mess. Who knows? Like those vehicles are contaminated. I mean, like that's a lot of radiation to just potentially be. And this is not the first time we've heard about stuff around Chernobyl. That's the other thing that's very alarming in all of this. And the longer this goes on, this war criminal is allowed to continue to wage this campaign. It begs the question, like, what's the point of war criminality? Like what is that? What's the point of Geneva? What is the point of a lot of the post-World War II order? And, what does the end game look like for Ukraine? Is it like, what would it actually take at this point for the West to step up and do something?
Yeah, I've tried to gauge as far as the moves over the last few weeks. I have tried to gauge what the potential growing NATO means to Putin, as well as I think the 2 main countries considering joining NATO being Finland and Sweden. And what if one of those joins, does the next one join right after it? And I think the main thing that caught my eye was since the war started in Finland, support for NATO went from 20% to over 50%. And I don't know what made someone in Finland previously for or against NATO and how that changed now. But
well, I think they view it as a form of defense, but like it's bizarre because essentially the implied thing with NATO is it's American defense. And so they want American defense, and right now it doesn't necessarily look like America is gonna rush to defend. And I know people are be like, "Well, Ukraine's not part of NATO." Like that is only because of the dramas that has been happening for the last decade. Like they would like to be part of NATO. They've actually asked recently, like if they could be fast tracked into NATO tomorrow, given the fact that they put in the application, they would be.
I guess what you're saying is both Russia and America have a vested or have some sort of interest in Ukraine wanting to be in NATO, but not in NATO.
Yeah, that's. I mean,
Right.
look at all of Putin's propagandists over here in America. Those scallywags. Like look at all of them. That is whether it's Greenwald or Michael Tracy or Fiorella Isabel or you name your Aaron Mate. That is one of the first things they bring up is none of this would be happening if the U.S. had just said that Ukraine could never be part of NATO. Even though, like, I think we all know that that's absolutely not true, especially if you take the denazification argument seriously. If you actually took the denazification argument at face value, the whole all we have to do is ask Ukraine not to be part of NATO thing makes absolutely no sense. Like, no, the problem is the Nazis, right?
Yeah, at some point with that crowd, you do have to start being skeptical merely upon the knowledge that they always lean upon unfalsifiable claims. They always do. And or they
Greenwald has reduced himself to absurdity. I don't actually want to do Greenwald tweets, but there was that one that I threw in the group chat that was like bonkers even for him the other day. That was like pure Russian apologia. I don't know what they've got on that guy. But I feel actually very confident now just saying they've got something on that guy because I, either he is getting paid well and that's what they got on him, or they got something that he doesn't want out about him. I don't know what it is, but like you can't square the circle with where his views were 10 years ago and where they are now. And like, and I'm not talking about like, take on this. Like you can't make a coherent ideology of out of what Greenwald is doing. You can't. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Like you look at the way he talked about imperialism in the U.S., not occupation to annex, but just occupy to occupy, during a decade's worth of the Iraq War and how what he's doing here with you. No, you can't. I'm sorry. And it's tough. I mean, this is a little bit of an aside, but I think it's an interesting one. I think one of the things that we as progressives need to wrestle with is the legacy of guys like Ed Snowden, Julian Assange, and Glenn Greenwald, who did, in my opinion, meaningful good things in the middle of the decade prior to 2015, let's say, and then post 2015, it has basically been a slow subsumption into the dark side. In the case of Assange, a rather quick one that has taken the left a long time to process because it's hard to go from WikiLeaks is this thing that we liked and trusted to WikiLeaks this thing that maybe the blobs and libs are right about, that like it is a Russian front and they are not good entirely. Like some of the stuff's real, but like, and you kind of had that vibe on the Panama Papers when Assange was like anti the Panama Papers, weirdly. I think that that's an interesting thing to think about with Ukraine here, at least domestically speaking. Some of these take mongers have really left themselves at a point where they're just thoroughly discredited.
Yeah, and I have trouble understanding how the pro Assange crowd can know how Assange started, but also not have the same spirit of, boy, we really need some sort of medium to get at these Russian oligarchs.
I feel like
There's no influence.
Chelsea Manning's the only one of that entire kind of classic mid-teens cast of progressive legends that has actually stood the test of time. Like Assange, Greenwald, Snowden, they're
So
all.
Manning is all go get the oligarchs, or at
Manning
least
has. I don't think Manning's not bought. No. I really like. Man, I don't agree with everything Manning says, but like I think Chelsea Manning is like just like a human trying to live her life. So like, and with a little bit, you know, out there but fine views or whatever on most.
Yeah, I guess that was more less of a take on the figures and more of a take on those who
Well, no,
support the figures.
and what I'm saying is okay. So there's those who support the figures, and like those people, they can be reckoned with at some point. I just think we, historically speaking, now have to sort of like reframe how we feel about those people. You know what I mean? Like it's still it's a mental reset. Like Snowden, it's still taking me a minute to like get to. Snowden's actually a bad guy. And Greenwald still I've gotten there at this point, but it took me a minute to get to Greenwald's actually a bad guy. Like he's not on our side. I made that joke when I was on Matt Lewis's show that I think we traded them over for cash considerations and a couple of first round draft picks in a future draft. Yeah, he ain't on our team anymore. And then like obviously,
what did we get out of that?
what do we get for Glenn Greenwald? I don't know, dude. But like, can we trade Brianna Joy Gray? What would it take to move her? Like, so long as we don't get back Virtual Texas. All right. On Ukraine, do you have any other thoughts other than what we've touched on so far? Like in
I
terms
guess
of the
what I was
progress
trying
of the
to get
campaigns?
I guess what I was trying to get as far as NATO goes is, if NATO were to grow one country larger, but that country is not Ukraine, that still is crossing a line that Putin has said is uncrossable, right?
Right. I mean, essentially, Putin is not going to give up Donbass or Crimea or any of the places that he's like contesting. Um, and denatofication wouldn't do anything for that. I don't,
Right. I
even in a
just don't.
blue sky world, like this would be terrible. I couldn't imagine Joe Biden, like, I mean, if Joe Biden decided we're going to disband NATO, which he would never do, obviously, but like if he decided we're just going to denatofy the world, it's not like Putin would withdraw out of the places of Ukraine that he has annexed. So while I
So
think adding on another country to NATO ratcheted things up, I'm also having a hard time putting a metric on that because that supposes a world where you can ratchet things down. And I don't believe that that world exists.
right. So you're saying we are at a certain point, and adding a non-Ukrainian figure to NATO doesn't really move the needle, but Putin's saying it does.
Right.
And I don't
Which he
understand.
would.
Yeah, I don't understand what Putin says to the Russians. What does Putin say to the Russian public when Finland joins NATO?
See, the West is further aligning themselves against us. And this is why Russia needs to stay strong, why we need to increase military spending, why what we did was good. I mean, he will spin it in a way that doesn't make it look like the Ukraine campaign was
Mhm.
immoral. I'm not.
No,
I think
I just
he'll
don't
be fine on
understand.
that front.
I don't understand why it's the threshold that he makes it to be, but it also seems to be the equal threshold for Ukraine to join.
Right.
Uh,
Well, it's a bluff play. It's because, like, yeah, he would like that, but it's kind of like you just say that and hope that your opponent will do it. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
it's
yeah, I get it.
he just
It's
doesn't
working.
care. Yeah. Like NATO removing two members would not make him any more chill.
Okay, so I
That's
guess
what I'm saying. I
yeah,
get that he
yeah.
would say that, but again, if you're trying to put utility on that, and this is the problem for these leftist advocates or whatever, it supposes this world where like NATO -3 equals less than NATO, and I'm not even sure no NATO is like for Putin, unless the United States didn't exist, I don't think he'd ever really feel chill.
So I guess what I'm having trouble with is I would have thought that Finland is of a certain media ecosystem to where they didn't interpret NATO to be this thing that it isn't. Or maybe because
No,
of how close they are.
they view it as a defense pact. I also think there are people who are hoping that though the United States seems to be governed by violence is never the answer foreign policy types, that you gotta honor your agreements is still something that maybe they could just make a this is worth fighting for argument. I mean, which has essentially been my argument since day one, which is Geneva is worth fighting for. And that you actually don't want to imagine a world without Geneva, no matter how uncivil fighting for that world is, because the world without Geneva is going to be even more uncivil.
So the last thing, and I guess this is the most recent Ukrainian news or Ukraine Russia news, is Putin's polling. I think that is what do you make of Putin's polling and why
That he
or,
makes it up.
right, okay. So
Yeah,
there's that, and
yeah.
there's him, then there's him using a disinformation campaign to actually move the numbers up, even though it's not representative of the truth. It's representative of the connection he has to the public. So are you supposing that the figures that are coming out about how the Russians feel about this is not so much the product of a disinformation campaign that's working. This is just a product of bogus numbers?
Yeah, I think it's more bogus numbers. I mean, look, I think that any government that has to operate in an unreality world has to necessarily jam the lane with propaganda. And that propaganda is going to have some degree of efficacy. Otherwise, it wouldn't be on the air. But I think, especially inside of Ukraine, where this is particularly relevant, the Russians inside of Ukraine are getting enough information from non Russian sources, and that's filtering back home. I just don't think the support's really that strong. I think the propaganda and stuff that Putin does domestically keeps the support from being way worse than what it is. It's defensive. I don't think it's going to allow him to achieve like Hitlerian levels of popularity, which has been a thing I talked about at the beginning of this conflict. That one of the things that keeps Putin from being Hitler, and it's an important thing, is that he's just not loved like that. Then they did that big Putin rally thing where they got like 60,000 people in or whatever. They bust all those people in. And those people, they were interviewing people there. Those people there, like, kind of had no opinion of Putin. Like, they weren't like lovers of him. They were like, we're just here because this is what we need to do. We're supposed to be here. And so we're here. Um, and yeah, it what
Do
do you want
you
me to say?
think
Yeah.
do you think the Russian people are capable of falling in love with someone like that?
No, not over this
Okay.
too. No, I mean the economy's not. Look, Hitler did a number of different. I mean, it's always been a shitty comparison, but like Hitler had made an economic juggernaut leading into all of his bullshit
Right.
that
Right.
got stronger as he was doing it. Putin's economy sucks ass. He has not built a juggernaut that is getting stronger because of his annexations. He's built a
Yeah.
Potemkin village that like can barely float right now and is doing everything they can to stay above ground. It is April, and a lot of financial analysts speculate that the Russians are gonna have real problems come summer here. This is not Hitler's Germany. He is not Hitler. What he's doing is Hitlerian, the annexation of the territory, but he's just not loved like that. He's not running the country like that. The country is not like that. Like
Are
they got
so
nukes. That's the big difference.
so the thing that Putin has on his side here seems to be seasonally on his side, and that's how much Europe needs fuel. And is there some sort of understanding that when it warms up and Europe doesn't need the fuel that it does, that there is a seasonal sort of he's going to run out of time here, or is that the way the fuel economy even works?
I don't know.
Or I don't know either.
I'm not qualified enough to kind of
All
speculate
right,
on that one. Any other topics here you want to hit?
I think so. That was enough. I think so.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff going on here. In this, yeah, no, it's like a 2-hour episode. This is a good
Yeah.
one. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this month's Don't Worry About the Government. Now, look, I'm trying to get more of these out than that, but also I don't like just putting out shows to put out shows. I'm not just trying to like take dollars or what. I mean, it's
So
a dollar show.
this is what I'm hearing, and I still remember your plain face as you said, "On our way to 1,000."
Oh yeah, we're on our way to 1,000. Look, here's how you do this campaign, buddy. One mile at a time. I'll tell you. No, let's be real here. If we're gonna use that as the frame, there is not a chance in hell I would make it to 1,000 if I didn't slow down the pace of the show here a little bit. Just to get, well, because like the other thing is I don't want to do what happened last time where like I just stopped doing it for a year and a half because I like felt there, I had to do it every 10 to 14 days, the Dan Carlin rule. And like, look, it's just got to be like at a comfortable rhythm. That being said, like a buck a show is always welcome for those of you who listen. And like, you're talking about give me $1 a month here. So like, if you can spare a buck a show, come on, people. Like it's 2022. We're used to the Patreon model now. It's patreon.com/DWATG. Buck a show is all I ask. You can also do paypal.me/paydwatg. There will be premium content. Actually, what the premium content is ultimately going to be is an extended behind the scenes on the album that Priscilla and I, or the EP that Priscilla and I are doing. So all 5 songs. I'm going to end up doing like this is for real, no bullshit. You guys are gonna get like an early advanced copy of it, as my way of saying thank you to all of you guys for supporting the show. Many of these songs you have heard drafts of as background music on Don't Worry About the Government. So like this is like it is tied into what you guys have gotten to know. And I'm real excited. And that's where like a lot of the time's going these days. Like Priscilla and I record on every Tuesday and Wednesday. But I'll do a full behind the scenes thing where I break down each song. I'll talk about like what I was doing. We'll go layer by layer. It'll be kind of cool. Each one's probably going to be like an episode, like 50 to 60 minutes a piece per song. All this stuff will be out in advance. I'm trying to put it out maybe like as much as a month in advance. So you guys will be the very first people who hear it, again, as my way of saying thank you. I think about it a lot. How am I doing this? That's you guys are gonna get it first. Like, you know, who better than you all. So if you can support the show at patreon.com/DWATG. Brian, where can people find you?
At Postman Retweets, at Postman RTs. I'm laying low. Got work to do. Got some offline work to do. My goodness.
Look at this floofy cat. This little cat is not so little anymore, but his name is Shadow. This is Don't Worry About the Government. It's an ostensibly weekly podcast, and we mean extremely ostensibly. What?
You know
what?
We didn't get to this.
Oh no! Oh, I'm going for the close. One more topic, please.
Forehand versus backhand. I think there's a difference, and we'll get to that next episode.
Yeah. It's called feedback, and we love it. That cat is very floofy. His name is Shadow. My name is Chris Novembrino. I want to thank you all so much for listening, and until the next one, bye-bye.